Once upon a time, anybody could walk into my office hours, yay, including you. All you had to do was show up. But what was that setting? So, in honor of it being Earth Day, this is more Earth Day content. So, Earth Day is 22 April in the United States of America of current/recent times, and it is Earth Day 2026. And so, this one is a University of California, Berkeley, Cal legacy of mine. So 9 years ago, to this day, when I was a PhD program in geophysics at the University of California, Berkeley, I gave a talk on campus on Earth Day. Today I chose to continue a Cal legacy of mine, this time doing a YouTube video. And so this is for something that I did while at the University of California, Berkeley, as a graduate student in geophysics. So this is reflecting on hosting office hours in the 2010s decade, in office versus in classroom, university campus. And the topic for this Earth Day content is what makes a healthy ecosystem. So thinking of myself as a community member, what makes an ecosystem includes living and non-living components. And so I was like, office hours is a great one. And as a stay-at-home daughter for over 6.00 consecutive years, this is actually hosting. So this is something I did before I was a stay-at-home daughter. And so here I, Tanis, she, her, hers of Seattle, reflect on hosting office hours in the 2010 decades in two environments, in office versus in classroom, each on campus for the university at which I was instructing, University of California, Berkeley. Yes, so in addition to being a student, I was an instructor for a number of different classes and hosted office hours in a number of settings. And so this is specifically addressing in a classroom versus in my office. And so I chose to highlight three components that factored into my decision making as to how I hosted office hours, and that I thought were things that I deliberately incorporated in my design of my office hours to try and foster a healthy ecosystem. So I am female, so comparison point where students could put their bag. So if I, starting off in kind of like the initial course, I was an instructor for, served in an instructor role for, I started off with office hours in my office, and I had it was an office with like 3 people in it. And there was like a table where students could come in and sit and work, and found that they would bring their bag with them. Or bags. So if it was an athlete, there might be more than one bag that they'd bring, kind of thing. And so, or if they were, or a musician, there might be a musical instrument. All right. So thinking about that, there was like, where do they put their bags? So I'm partially taking this approach because I don't want to provide identifying information about particular individuals, so being respectful of identity as best as I can, while also being like, but there was design from me that I can talk about. So in cases where I thought there might be a higher turnout for the number of students, I would reserve a classroom. And so and that allowed for space for their bag and them to kind of spread out in a way that they couldn't in my office. So if turnout was low, the office setting was fine and could provide a little bit more of like, it's not an echo chamber and like so to speak. Whereas if there was a higher turnout, that echo chamber also wasn't an echo, or it wasn't an echo chamber there because it got filled with voices and bags. Okay. So it would have been an echo chamber in the sense of like there was empty space if it was just a few of us, or could have been, that kind of thing. All right, so that's comparison metric 1. Comparison metric 2, I am a human, so as part of being a human, I need to be able to communicate, including with words. So chalkboard availability, which is a vertical writing surface, and table/desktop availability, a horizontal writing surface. So I'm talking about like vertical versus horizontal. And I actually, so this is a one where I'd actually say I had a good setup. My department did well. It was Department of Earth and Planetary Science and graduate programs in geophysics. And I had a chalkboard for some for one of my office spaces. I did have a chalkboard, so for that one it was nice. Otherwise I needed a classroom for office hours, and depending on the classroom I would get, the amount of chalkboard space would be variable. So that would factor into what classroom I would choose. And a vertical writing surface is great if I want to write something and there are attendees and I want them to be able to write something and the attendees of office hours to be able to read it. Okay, without looking down. All right, so they can look up and then they can write on something. So there we go. Which gets to the second part of this is table/desktop availability. Horizontal writing surface. So that'd be something for them to write on. It depended on the office for that one and what the setup in the office was. That tended to be better in a classroom as well. And especially if I wanted a vertical surface for writing, like a chalkboard, and then the students to be able to put their stuff down and write. That was better in a classroom, and I thought it was great for a classroom sense, in the sense of like, for me, since I was a graduate student, also like, you know, these classrooms are a fixed component of the department, of the building, of the campus, and learning to kind of respect like the classroom is like an authority, so to speak, and having these resources and just simple like a vertical writing surface and a flat horizontal writing surface. So that was one, and changing offices was a good one in the sense of like helping me appreciate better classroom design. So that's good, right? It helps with the ecosystem of being like different components are needed, right? And there's decision making that goes into these aside from me, okay, and how they're set up and maintained. And then the third comparison is I aspired to foster an approachable space, so windows to look for squirrels. Yes, I actually thought about this at the time. The campus had squirrels with yellowish fur, so they were a little bit different. I think they were called fox squirrels or something like that. They were different than species we have here. I still, you know, they ate the gold, the dirt of California that still has some gold in it, and that's how they turned yellow. the Tanis take on the yellow fur. But they were one that even on my graduate students, so before I ever enrolled in the campus, the squirrels caught my attention. They were a big species. And so there was one that, whether they were looking at, so for me, I was drawn to the squirrels, but for some people, like, they really liked to look out the window or have that option, of like being able to be like, I'm thinking about something and like, okay, I can look at the board, but like, can I clear my brain and like turn and look out a window? And so this is one that was, of the two, and this is, or of the three comparison, this is like the tie. There were windows in my offices as well as the classrooms, and I would almost say in like an office setting, it's almost more conducive to like you're allowed to look around, whereas like in the classroom, it's like conditioning to you have to look at the front of the classroom. So while present in both, there's a little bit of like freedom to look around in an office. That might have favored the office setting for actual use of the windows during office hours as a place to gaze and clear one's mind, or like visualize, you know, without the like whatever they're looking at interfering. So there we go. And that is reflecting on hosting office hours in the 2010s decade in office versus in classroom, university campus. And for those who didn't attend, I did tend to host office hours in a long sleeve t-shirt, so you got the real deal 9-year later experience. Down to what I looked like. I think I even had my Ray-Bans, different pair, but Ray-Bans framed glasses back